Good morning. My name is Eden Grossman, and today is December 3rd, 2015. On this day in 1818, Illinois became the 21st state. Illinois is now filled with cities that are bustling and busy. When Illinois became the 21st state, it was a large prairie, which was quickly claimed by the pioneers. This was an important event because Illinois is a very busy and popular place to live today. Some popular cities now include Chicago, Springfield, Aurora, Rockford, Naperville, and many more. Thank you.
My name is Zach Zabanik. Recently, in current events, on Sunday, November 29th, basketball superstar Kobe Bryant announced his retirement from the National Basketball Association. According to Andrew Catt of the New York Times, quote, Kobe Bryant of the Los Angeles Lakers announced Sunday that he would retire from professional basketball after the end of this season, his 20th in the NBA, bringing to a close one of the most decorated careers in the history of the sport, end quote. This is important because Kobe Bryant is one of the biggest superstars in the game, and he has earned many achievements since being drafted 13th overall in the 1996 draft. Bryant is third on the NBA's career scoring list, only behind basketball legends Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Karl Malone. Additionally, Bryant has earned 2 Olympic gold medals, 5 NBA titles, has been voted onto the All-Star team 17 times, and won league MVP in 2008. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jack Bukovnik. Usually when we think about trauma, we think about how terrible it is. But did you know that it can have benefits? Recent studies have shown that trauma can have benefits for personal growth. Here to tell you more on this compelling topic, your Chapel Talk Speaker of the Day, Andrew Marshall Horton.
On December 3rd, 2014, my life changed in ways that were unimaginable to me at the time. It was a routine tackle during the second scrimmage of my 7th grade year. This time, unlike every other, I did not walk away. I was carted off the field to Hillcrest Hospital. I lost a year of school and endured 17 surgeries. I experienced mental trauma knowing that I could have lost my leg, never having the chance to play football again. Admittedly, it was a terrible and long year. Through all the pain I have endured, I have grown, not just physically, but mentally. I experienced what some of us have suffered through for their whole lives. I have made new friends and have grown closer with my family. I have experienced what it is like to lose what so many of us take for granted, like this school. Suffering through trauma is unbelievably difficult and painful. Given the right support and positive mentality, however, experiencing trauma can have surprising benefits. Living through traumatic experiences can have a positive impact on one's life because it instills a sense of maturity, promotes strong connections between friends and family, and teaches empathy and compassion. The Center for Nonviolence and Social Justice defines trauma as, quote, the experiences or situations that are emotionally painful and distressing, and that overwhelm people's ability to cope, leaving them powerless, end quote. Experiencing traumatic events, such as a cancer diagnosis or witnessing others being hurt, can be emotionally and physically devastating. Those who do not have proper support at the time of the trauma can get lost in the moment of the tragedy, which leads to long-lasting distress or depression, relationship problems, or even addictive tendencies. When dealing with trauma, there are generally 2 common outcomes. People can let themselves be dragged down, falling into bad habits that only support how they feel. Others rise and let the trauma push them forward. Research supports that people can go through and change positively as a result of living through a traumatic event. Trauma can help build maturity, particularly in young individuals. This maturity comes through the development of self-confidence. Self-confidence propels people to believe in themselves. Mike Alden, a former Navy SEAL, states, quote, there's a silver lining to adversity that is critical to know. It's the confidence you gain from overcoming it that can't be earned any other way. This confidence is a cornerstone of your attitude. It's the engine of your persistence, and it stokes your ability to dream bigger dreams. End quote. Research from the American Psychological Association supports the claim that young survivors often develop confidence by feeling that they can overcome anything. Additionally, trauma teaches young people strategies to persevere. Learning these strategies can be useful to help survive adversity later in life. Melanie Greenberg, a psychologist and writer for Psychology Today, writes, quote, "Facing our traumas can help us learn how strong we are and what we can bear. We are often surprised by our ability to tolerate difficult memories and emotions when we feel motivated by a personally important goal." End quote. People who know how to persevere through trauma are prepared when other difficult situations arise. Ray Lewis, for example, was a star football player for the Baltimore Ravens. On January 31st, 2000, when Lewis was 25 years old, his entourage broke out into a fight with other people at a party, which resulted in 2 deaths. Lewis spent 11 days in jail and eventually struck a plea bargain. After this traumatic experience, Lewis was a changed man. He did not speak much of the incident, but in an interview in 2010, Lewis was asked a question regarding the subject. He responded, quote, "I'm telling you, no day leaves this earth without me asking God to ease the pain of anybody who was affected by that whole ordeal. Not that he put me in that situation, because he didn't make me go nowhere. I put myself in that situation." End quote. Lewis shows tremendous growth, taking responsibility for his actions and taking a mature look at his choices. Gaining a sense of greater maturity, however, is not the only benefit of surviving trauma. Experiencing trauma can strengthen important bonds by bringing people closer to friends and family. According to the Joyful Heart Foundation, people who suffer through trauma benefit from having a support network in order to listen, provide care, and even serve as a distraction. Psychologist Melanie Greenberg writes, quote, "Researchers studying people exposed to events such as accidents, war zone deployment, serious illness, or bereavement have found that social support and relationships with others in the time period following the event are key predictors of the psychological recovery. Difficult experiences can deepen our bonds with family and friends, and they give us the opportunity to see how deeply people care for us." End quote. As Greenberg notes, people feel less distressed or pain when others surround them. The Joyful Heart Foundation echoes this by noting how important it is for those who are experiencing trauma to be surrounded by their natural habits as a source of stability, like close family. Marshall Bruce Mathers, also known as Eminem, an American rapper who grew up in the projects of Missouri and Detroit, serves as a reminder of this. His father abandoned him when he was an infant, and his mother, Deborah Mathers, raised him. She struggled to find and keep jobs. Eminem moved from school to school and was beat up in bathrooms, hallways, and according to Rolling Stone, was harassed by his peers. Not only by living through these traumatic experiences was he able to reach out and find a support with what Rolling Stone calls, quote, "a handful of friends who recognize his rhyming skills," end quote. Additionally, people help by simply listening to each other's story. Monica Martinez, a senior clinical manager in Houston, explains, quote, "Listening to an individual's story can have an enormous impact on that one person's healing journey. Although you can never take away what happened to someone, you can be a source of comfort." End quote. According to the Joyful Heart Foundation, listening to one story can provide people with a motive to strive for greater things and make them want to recover more efficiently in order to enjoy time with the same people that were helpful when the trauma was happening. Oprah Winfrey, for example, the first African-American billionaire, did not start out in riches. She grew up in Mississippi and did not live a flashy life. Her mom's friends and other men sexually abused her. Even though she suffered a terrible childhood, she found a way to persevere. She is an incredible woman and now lives her life for others, listening and sharing stories. Additionally, experiencing trauma can instill empathy and compassion in those who have suffered. After living through trauma, many people devote themselves to a cause related to what they had experienced. Melanie Greenberg writes, quote, "Research on post-traumatic growth has shown that the experience of trauma may lead people into new activities, lifestyles, and or relationships that make life more meaningful, rich, and satisfying." as they channel their pain into meaningful, creative work." End quote. For example, cancer survivors may choose to create an organization that tries to raise money to find a cure or provide support for current patients and their families. Facing Cancer Together, a nonprofit organization headquartered in Boston, does this exact thing. The organization provides support services for current patients and their families. Additionally, research from PsychNet notes that many people who need to cope with trauma develop a sense of empathy for others who are going through a similar thing. Writer Paul D. Fredrickson exclaims, quote, "Suffering is a preparation for the service of sympathy. The training is costly." End quote. Empathy, some say, cannot be taught, but in my personal experience, it can through trauma. Many trauma survivors know what to do when a friend or family member is dealing with a trauma. They know what they might and might not like. For example, when Mrs. Lee broke her leg and she was suffering a trauma similar to mine, I felt terrible and wanted to help because I knew the pain she was suffering. Experiencing trauma enhanced not only my maturity, but also my ability to connect emotionally with others. Nevertheless, some critics argue that the severity of trauma overwhelms all positives. In particular, there are overwhelming economic costs. A writer for the American Psychological Association notes, quote, "Trauma disorders are a common and costly problem in the United States. In 1990, anxiety disorders cost the U.S. an estimated $46.6 billion. Untreated post-traumatic stress disorder from any trauma is unlikely to disappear and can contribute to chronic pain, depression, drug and alcohol abuse, and sleep problems that impede a person's ability to work and interact with others. I have suffered immense physical pain and misery beyond measure. I have had the highs and the lows. I have found so much more than I had before, like new friends and old friends that became much closer. I have a new respect for everything that people go through. Despite the cost of my injury, I recognize the silver linings for both me and my family." In conclusion, learning to cope with trauma can provide surprising benefits, such as helping individuals mature. Additionally, it can create strong bonds between friends and family, and can enrich important values such as empathy and compassion. Some of you may have already experienced trauma, or you may in the future. What is important to remember is to keep pushing forward no matter what. The memory of trauma may always stay with you, but it does not need to haunt you. Through this experience, I have learned the value of healing. I look back on that day and last year not only as a time of pain, but of growth. I have learned to love, feel, and sense happiness. Now, I'm not saying you should go through a traumatic experience, but if you do, take advantage of it and do not let it control you.
Great job, Andrew. Are there any faculty or family announcements? Mrs. Horton.
He's so afraid I'm going to freak out on him. I don't know what the word, giving the camel talk that your parents are going to make fun of you. I just want to take just a couple minutes of your time, because I haven't been able to personally thank all of Andrew's classmates as a family for last year and everything you did for him. All the cards that you wrote, they actually really came in handy. We posted them all over the hospital ballroom.
behind us, and it's just kind of a good opportunity for us to be able to do that. Kind of in conclusion, no words to say how